Greetings, traveller. Hello, welcome back to Buggleskelly Station and part 3 of my modelling Sodor series, all about my new 009 layout, Crovan's Castle. So, on to the layout update. I've made a start on building up the landforms at the side of the boards. I decided to use plastic board and plywood for this, just to build up a structure that I filled with newspaper, and eventually there'll be a black fascia board along all the edges, so that'll hide the joins and make it look tidier. I find a mess-free way of doing this is to use strong builder's masking tape, which means you can easily cut it away, start again if you make a mistake. And at the next stage this will all be covered in sculptor mould anyway, so you won't see it. I added plywood backboards. I'm not decided yet if I'll add a back seam behind the layout like I did with Buggleskelly, but this should add some 3D depth if I do. This is all glued to the baseboard, and it'll be held in place with all the sculptor mould and the rock faces later. I designed the board to be able to split apart, which will be vital in future if I move house or anything like that, but it does make landforming much harder at this stage. And it's starting to come together. The road looping just under the track is thick mounting board card. Now, a bit out of sequence, so I filmed this bit earlier, but it's time to make a start on the bridge. I began by tracing the track shape onto a piece of card, which I then scanned into the computer. This is by no means a high-tech solution, but it worked for me. What I did was I used the scan to draw equal sections of the bridge, just in Photoshop, and then I printed it onto a piece of thick card. The wood I used for the bridge is balsa strip wood, which I cut to length with the Linic chopper, and then I dropped some India ink into a tub and I dropped in the pieces. This just gives the wood an aged look, which is not essential as paint will cover most of it later. It just means that anything missed by painting or weathering won't look too new. Then it's just a case of sticking them all down to the printed card template with ordinary PVA. The structure at this stage is very weak, so I reinforced it underneath with more strips of wood. Now, back in Photoshop, I used some pictures of trestle bridges as inspiration to make my own piers. I'm sure somebody who knows about bridges will correct me if that's the wrong term. I'm going to call them piers. These were then printed and I used them as a template to cut and build the structure. The next step was to add some tiny tack pins in to represent bolts in the piers, and these tacks were just snipped in half and then pushed into the wood, which is very hard to do with fat fingers. So the next job, probably the most fun for me, is painting the wood, and I use acrylic paints and paint by hand, mixing some with water, building up in layers. It looks like a crap tiger for a while, but then you start to wash colour over it and the wood effect comes through. Towards the bottom of the piers, I added green mossy algae colour and then scattered some fine leaves onto the wet paint. These leaves are made by Tremendous and they're small enough to work as a sort of moss at this scale, so they look pretty good. I then sprayed all the pieces with matte varnish and allowed it to dry. And for now, that's it. Nothing will be glued into place until I've finished the rock faces and scenery around the bridge, but that'll have to be another video. I did do a test piece for the rocks using acrylic washes, and I'm pretty happy with the effect, so I'll detail that in part 4, probably in about 3 months' time at this rate. Or I might do a Hornby and bring it out in 2025 instead. So thanks very much for watching. I'm sorry it took as long as this, and any questions please comment below or contact me on Twitter or Facebook. The links are in the description. And don't forget you put your order in for the vent vans as well, because they're due next month. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.